Every day, you essentially pay your dues by doing the harder thing when it's the right thing to do. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, sorry for the time stuff. I know you're probably working. Is it late for you there? What time is it?
It's 8:23 p.m.
Oh, yeah, that's late.
That's all right.
It's okay. How are things? How are things going?
Good. Very good.
Yeah, that's
How are
awesome.
you?
Yeah, no complaints here. It's Monday morning, like bright and early for us. So just doing work and getting used to things like that for the week.
Nice.
Yeah, where are you guys located? Are you guys in Sydney area or the other side of the country?
So we're in Western Australia, so Perth. Do you know where
Mm.
that is?
Oh, I do. I visited Perth actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, 3 years ago, I did a clinic at the high performance stuff there in Perth, and then I was there for like maybe 3
Oh,
days.
that's cool.
Yeah, it was great. I was upset because I was only there for like 5 days. Coming from America and spending 5 days there was brutal in terms of like jet
Mm.
lag, but it was super fun when I was there. Yeah, I forget exactly where I stayed. I was definitely in downtown Perth, and then I recognized one of the competition center from one of your Instagram videos from like competing. That's where we did the clinic, and I was there for like 2 or 3 days.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
And I forget the gym is escaping me. It was Coral and some other people who and Josh. Josh also.
Oh, yeah, it would have been the old, high performance center. Um, it's no longer called what it used to be called. I can't remember what it's called, but
Yeah, it was super fun though. I enjoyed it there.
that's cool.
So are you guys around that area too?
Yeah, we actually, so my club has two different gymnastics venues.
Yeah.
So we have the venue that I work in, and then the venue that you saw in like the comp videos is a venue that we rent out, and we run classes over there as well.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, it's pretty close to the high performance center that you visited, I think.
That's cool. Yeah, and then I
Yeah.
saw on your I was just like looking on your Instagram stuff like that. It sounds like I kind of got a feel for like who you work with and stuff like that. So is it you and then the other two people that were in the contest? Did you get your shirts by the way? Did those actually come?
Oh, I haven't got them yet.
Oh
No.
no, those are definitely like lost in the pandemic mail system somewhere.
Oh.
I sent them like two weeks ago, hoping they would go out in time, but I feel like those are somewhere like in Dubai right now.
Oh, that'd be right.
If they don't come though, we'll find a way to make sure you can get them offline or something like that.
That's all right.
I,
That's
I
okay. They
promise.
should come.
Yeah, I feel like everything's just lost in transit right now.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I was looking and I kind of got a feel for the level of girls you were working with and like kind of like the squad and stuff like that. But is it three of you? How many coaches are there besides just you?
Okay, so I take my own squad, but the people that I tagged, so I tagged my manager.
Yeah.
She used to be a really good gymnast, and she also used to coach like high level girls. So like I go to her for coaching advice and stuff,
Mm,
and she
great.
is the one who's taught me how to spot my skills.
Yep.
And then the other person, Soph, she coaches two levels below me, but we used to work closely together because our girls were sort of learning the same kind of skills at the same time.
Sure.
But we no longer work the same days anymore. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's sad. That's
yeah.
awesome, though. Yeah. So honestly, like whatever in the world I can possibly help you with, I'm like completely yours for as long as you need it. So I don't know if you want to go over questions on like just overall stuff or strength stuff or general questions, like literally whatever you hope for. That's why I'm recording this so that we can give this to you after and review it. But then after that, we'll kind of keep in touch and keep chatting about it. But yeah, whatever I can possibly help with, fire away.
All right, that sounds good. I guess one of the weak points in my squad overall, something that I see a lot of the girls struggle with, is shoulder flexibility, shoulder mobility. And I know that you have a lot of exercises and things on that, but I guess I'm just wondering what are the best exercises to do and how frequently I should be incorporating them into lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the first piece of it too is if it's possible, I think the problem that often comes up is that a lot of times there are a lot of good exercises for certain problems, right? But there are a lot of different overlapping issues, right? So when you can't get your arms over your head, there are a variety of reasons that can happen. And so I think
Mhm.
that if you take the exercises that I give online, they're kind of like a catch-all for like most problems, but they're really not going to be super specific because you might have one girl who the reason she can't get her arms up is because her shoulders are actually stiff in the muscles. Another
Mhm.
girl might have stiffness in her upper back versus another girl might be super flexible, but just not have the active flexibility for it. So I think the first important thing would be like understand the different reasons why somebody couldn't get their arms over their head and then do a specific screen. Like if you just took one day and screened out all of the girls in your squad, it would literally save you hundreds of hours in trying to do stuff down the road. And you would be able to make a little plan for each one about, okay, here's 10 minutes at the beginning of practice. Everyone do their own little thing. And it might be grouped, like some girls might be kind of the same as others, but that's probably the first hurdle to tackle. So I think maybe just sharing like the differences there would be important first. And then I can kind of share the exercise that work.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, sure. So the biggest reason possibly that somebody or the biggest thing to check first is going to be like your upper back, your it's called your thoracic spine. So if you can't open your upper back up, then it's going to be really hard to get your arms over your head. And the problem is that if you miss that one first, it looks like a lot of other problems are the same thing, right? So you might think it's someone who's like actually stiff in like their pecs or their lats, but it's not so much. So the way you test for that is you have them go on hands and knees and curl up in a ball. So like they're kneeling, and maybe I can actually find a video of this. They curl up in a ball and they put their elbow close in front of their knees and just turn their shoulders to their upper ceiling. And you try to see how far they can rotate up and down. So I can maybe look. It might be easy if I just share my screen. This is a terrible video of it, but you so you go on hands and knees like this, and you put their elbow down in front of their knees, and see how this guy's like turning up
Mhm.
the ceiling. So you would, if you sit like this, you can't like cheat with your lower back, and so when you turn your to the ceiling, it just tells you how flexible their upper back is. So
Okay.
I would like take each girl individually and like as we go through the screen, you can do each one, but I would do this first because they should be able to turn almost all the way to the ceiling. Like it's really for gymnasts, they should be able to rotate quite a bit also. Then the other thing you can have them do is like a seal stretch. So have them push up into a seal stretch, and then you should make sure that their upper back can actually arch. So it's like there are some numbers for it, but do this first and see if they can do this on both sides. Because if this is the problem and you start doing like other stuff, you're probably just going to waste all the time, unfortunately. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
do this on each side first. And then the other thing that I'm not sure if you've seen it before, but the like the back to wall shoulder stick screen. Have you ever seen that before?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I would do the upper back one first, and then I would have them sit against the wall. I would have them put their palms down and go overhead as high as they can. And then I would have them put their palms up and go overhead again as high as they can. And if there's a difference there between this and this, with their
Mhm.
palms forward and palms back, that probably means that the muscles underneath, like here, are probably stiff. So that would be a different kind of like, subset of girls that probably need like foam rolling and some stuff specific to that. So there's like the thoracic
Okay.
spine stuff, there's like the underarm muscles here, and then there's probably a few of them that might be really stiff in the front. And the way you look at that is you have them lay on their back, and you look down from the top where their head is, and if their shoulders like pop up off the ground, that's probably stiffness in the front here.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, like your upper back people, like your underarm stiffness people, and then probably like their chest stiffness people. That's like three different little buckets. And then the last one would be if all of those are negative, right? So like if they have all three of those are like fine, but they still like when they do bean back handsprings or stuff like that, they just can't get their arms over their head. That's probably going to be kids that need active flexibility stuff that are just weak in their upper back muscles and just need, strength work like that. So it's kind of like I don't know, probably three kind of major ones, like the people for the upper back, the people for like the muscular stuff, and then the people who need like just more active flex. So it'll probably take you just like to screen those three things in all of your squad people. How many people are in your squad?
Um, I'd say at most, because some of them don't train every single day.
Sure.
8.
Yeah, eight, exactly. So that would probably take you like maybe an hour, maybe 45 minutes to an hour to run
Okay.
go through that right away. And so if you let me pull up Shift's YouTube library too. So if you have, and we can put this all together too, like Sarah can like give you maybe like a little bit of a cheat sheet and like you can like follow through it versus like just hearing me talk about it the whole time.
Okay.
But yeah, if they are ones who the first test, the one that like you tried to do with their hands and knees, isn't really good, you would probably want to give them specific like upper back, kind of like I don't know, flexibility exercises, because that's going to be the biggest thing is trying to teach them how to like open from their upper back and not from their lower back. It also is a big reason why a lot of them have like back pain because a lot of them won't be able to move from their upper back or open their shoulders fully. So they'll either like arch more from their lower back and it causes their back to hurt, or they crunch their wrist when they do beanbag handspring. So a lot of people who like have this problem, whether it's like shoulders or upper back, they probably have like too cranky wrists or like cranky lower backs as well. So super boring, super basic, but by far and away, like the easiest way to have them do stuff is literally just like over a foam roller, and not like um rolling up and down on a
Mhm.
foam roller, but like actually like arching over a foam roller. I don't know who this guy is. I just randomly found this video online.
Oh.
But like just actually extending like up and back, like reverse sit-ups, like having them do 10 to 15 of these every day before practice, trying to
Mhm.
not arch from their lower back, just put the foam roller like 10 on their lower here and then 10 on their upper. That would be
Yeah.
probably the first thing to have them do. So like that group would need like 10 of those. Probably you would probably want to do these every day before practice for 10 minutes for ones that are really struggling. And then after 10 of those, you could probably do, where is it? These bad boys. So hands and knees, just turning up as far as you can to the ceiling.
Okay.
Right. So you do like the first exercise to kind of loosen things up. And then this one, 10 of these turns that way. And then I would have them also do, I think you could probably see it here, but this is more to like screen for back pain. But this drill, would you like have them arch from their upper back, is very, very good after you do the first two. So like
Mhm.
a lot of people use this as a Yurchenko drill, but I think that it's probably the best thing you can do to teach them to open their shoulders. So you'd want to do like the first exercise where you like get their back loose, the second exercise where you're like probably warming it up a little bit, and then the third exercise where you're bending back and trying to use your upper back as much as you can. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of like a few exercises done really, really well every day versus
Yeah.
like massive epic shoulder flexibility circuit, right? Because just doing this every day would take you like 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and they can do it before practice. But if you say like when you screen all of them, so say you have 8 of them and 2 of them are in this category, they would get this little sheet, every day before practice versus the other 5 or 3 are like, the shoulder flexibility one. That would be when you would go for that. And the third one might be like more of like, okay, you guys don't need to do a ton of stretching. You guys just go do some like upper back strengthening and stuff like that. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be the first group. The second group that had the stick problem where they couldn't get their arms over their head and they couldn't do anything back and forth, they would get the, I don't know if you've seen the complex, but the actual like shoulder flexibility complex that I've put online is more for these kids because it kind of falls into like when they grow and they get a little bit stiffer and stuff like that. So you could use um, this one, which is very helpful, which is kind of just doing like foam rolling and then combined with some like stick stretching and then combined with some like chin up lowers. So like actually foam rolling underneath for 3 to 60
Mhm.
seconds, right? Doing a little bit there. And then the stick stretch. So when they put their elbows up and they're trying to stretch underneath like this, I'm not sure if you've seen this before, but the
Yeah.
foam, yeah, so foam rolling and then the stick stretching. The one that like most people have probably seen or you've seen, this is for the girls that are very specifically have like they can't get the stick overhead when their palms are backwards because it probably means that their under here is very stiff, like their lat and their teres major.
Mhm.
So that would be the person who would probably go for like foam roll every day, use a lacrosse ball to the back of their shoulder for 30 seconds, do a stick stretch for 30 seconds, and then maybe do some like handstand drills or some like chin up lowers all the way overhead. That would be probably who needs that as well. But I think there's another one up here that this one's probably the most helpful one that I've used. So girls that come in early and have, again, the combination of like things being very, very stiff underneath, but maybe they also have some strength problems is probably like this one, which is like foam rolling like against the wall or doing that with your lat, the stick stretch. These shoulder circles are very, very good, which is also what we use for those girls that are just really hyper flexible and don't really have too much like stiffness. They're just like very, very
Mhm.
mobile. Chin up lowers as well, and then doing some sort of a tucked wall handstand. So that would be like the separate circuit that I would give the ones who are, they don't have an upper back stiffness, but they're just very stiff in the muscles under here. Every day for about 10 minutes, they would do foam roll real quick, cross ball to the back, stick stretch, shoulder circles, chin up lowers, and then the tuck wall handstand. So that would be like the second group. Like that would be the one that they kind of get. And the third group,
Yeah.
that last one, they would probably get a combination of these shoulder circles, right? Like they could do these shoulder circles, like pretty much any shoulder active flex you can do. So probably 10 reps of these upper back circles. And then I think have you seen wall angels before or stomach angels? You familiar with those?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So probably 10 of those as well would be really good. And then I also like the tall kneeling back bending drill for them as well. So, right, so they would just need circles, some wall angels, and then the back bending drill. And then the other one that you can do for those kids, because usually they don't have enough strength in their upper back to actually like pull their arms overhead, or they get their arms overhead in the back handspring on beam. But when they hit the beam, if they're not strong enough in their upper back, like it kind of collapses on them and their shoulder angle closes. So I would say doing some sort of strength work for them would be really good as well. So I think face pulls are probably the easiest bang for your buck, which are relatively easy to set up. You just need a band around like a beam or something like that. So just like working on rowing and pulling upper back this way is probably going to be the best thing you do, because the stronger you can get their upper back, the more they're going to hit the beam and not collapse. And so again, those
Yeah.
kids are probably very hyper flexible. They're extremely mobile. They don't need a ton of like flexibility or stretching work, but they do need strength to their upper back. So like, maybe 10 face pulls or a couple sets of face pulls at the beginning, any like dumbbell weight stuff you want to do for their upper back. And then just like the shoulder circles, the wall angels, the tall kneeling back bends, like those kids are really more just on the bucket of, just try to get yourself more strong in your upper back and see if you can do it, along with like, handstand work and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, that was a lot of talking. I'm sorry, but does it make sense? There's like three buckets. There's like the upper back flexibility kids, the I'm growing and I'm getting tight because my muscles are stiff kids, and like the super flexible kids who, probably just need more strength.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's what I would do. I would screen them first on the first day you do it. Just like use those three tests, right? So either the upper back turning one, the stick one, or if they're not those two, they probably fall in the category of just really, really hypermobile. And then from there, I would maybe just have like, I don't know, note cards. You could just like make little note cards for like the 8 kids and just have them do the same thing every day, probably for, I don't know, at least 3 weeks, I would say. Like every day before practice for 5 to 10 minutes for 3 weeks is probably what you want to do. And just take pictures before and after, right? So like those kids that go hands and knees and they turn, make sure they sit their hips all the way back and you screen them, but take a picture from like the top of how far they can go and then compare it 3 weeks down the road to see if it got better, right? Same thing with the shoulder stick kids, right? Take a picture from the side of their palms backwards going as high as they can and just see from the side how far they are close to the wall. And then 3 weeks later, after they do it every single day, or if they do it at home, if they don't come to practice one day, retake those pictures and see if maybe they could get farther there. And those kids that are not super stiff, maybe have them do a back handspring or hold a handstand and just see what their shoulder shape looks like, and just see if over the course of 3 weeks you can see if they get some more stacked and their ears are covered and they can push up as tall as they can, because the strength kids at the last group might take a little bit longer, but the other ones, you might see some pretty quick gains pretty fast. So yeah, that's what I would do. And then I would, like I said, I would do it every day. It's a pain in the butt, but 5 to 10 minutes every day with a couple exercises is usually more consistent than like a 15 or 20 or 30-minute shoulder flexibility circuit when you're in the middle of
Yeah.
practice and you have so
Yeah.
much stuff to do. The
That's
kids that are very stiff and the muscles under
yeah.
here, try to change the amount of rope climbs and pull-ups that they're doing and leg lifts that they're doing. So change the
Yeah.
exercises out. So like instead of doing a lot of chin-ups, have them do feet elevated rows. Do you know what those are? So feet are up on a low bar and you're rowing to your
Oh,
chest.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so do feet elevated rows instead, because the problem usually is that the muscles that are very, very stiff already from growing in puberty,
Mhm.
same muscles get worked with chin ups and leg lifts and lowers and stuff like that. So, like, or sorry, chin ups, leg lifts, and rope climbs. So the lats and the teres, which are already stiff, they might get further stiff if it's just like a lot of pull ups and a lot of rope climbs and a lot of leg lifts. So you can still work, strength wise, but just switch exercises. So instead of leg lifts, have them do L holds. Instead of chin ups and rope climbs, have them switch one day per week where they're doing rows to their upper back, because it mimics like the face pull exercise. So you'll actually get more flexible by taking away a little bit of the same repetitive strength exercises over and over. And then if you add some of the flexibility stuff every day, that will help as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay. What were you saying? Sorry, my fault.
Oh, no, that's fine. And then I was just gonna say another sort of area that needs improvement is like my gymnasts are struggling to hit 180 in their leaps and jumps. Like I guess yeah, like they can hold their splits like static on the ground, but
Yep.
when it comes to moving, they can't accentuate like a clean 180
Yep.
degrees.
Yep. Yeah, definitely super common and very similar to kind of what we were just talking about. So you're going to have the exact same thing happen, right? You're going to have,
Yeah.
if the kids who can do a full the kids who can't do a full split on a line on the floor, right, will
Yeah.
need more flexibility stuff. They'll need more like actually getting muscles longer, because again, maybe they're growing, same kind of stuff. Maybe they have some hamstring stiffness in the front leg, maybe their quads and their hip flexors and their groin are tight on the back leg. a lot of different possible reasons there. So you're going to have one group of kids that, again, you just screen them with a line on a split. So do them a left and a right line on a split, and then a straddle split against the wall, and just see how far they can go down. For the kids that can't get all the way down, obviously, you put them like in the flexibility bucket. For the kids that can get all the way down on the floor and just can't hit their angles on beam or when they're on floor, they go more in like the strengthening bucket or active flexibility bucket. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the first one, for the kids that just struggle to like actually get their splits lower, there are some very good complexes that I put together that essentially do the exact same thing of the shoulder flexibility circuit, but they're just like, I don't know, they kind of cheat and they like take the time out of like having to like research every single exercise you could possibly do. They do take a little bit longer because they usually involve a couple more exercises like hamstrings and quads and stuff like that. But I will send you these as well. I'm not sure if you've seen these before, so please, if you have, and these are jokes, just let me know. But this is probably for the left and right splits. This is probably the most like time efficient thing that I've done. So like
Yeah.
foam rolling each area, particularly the inner thigh, is what people typically overlook. Quad stretching like very quickly, but I think the most important stuff is like some of these leg lowers are probably the best for actually getting your split lower. So they would do 10 leg lowers on each side. They would do some like active flexibility work, trying to warm their hips up, and then they would immediately go over and do some active flexibility drills in a row. So
Okay.
it's like it's not so much that one of these exercises is better or worse, right? You need kind of like some of the stretching and some of like the leg lowers and some of the active hip flexibility drills. It's the fact that you're doing them all in a row in sequence, right? So like each one of these things in the complex has some support and research to be beneficial if it's done consistently every single day. So like stretching works, some little bit of foam rolling to relax the muscle might work temporarily. Eccentrics are very, very good, like with split sliders, and jumping and leaping and stuff like that. But the key is that 5 exercises done every single day for a couple rounds in a row is more effective than like, okay, everyone do your splits, everyone do needle
Mhm.
pulls, everyone do, splits and jumps. So same kind of deal. The girls that don't have their splits all the way down, I would be doing probably 2 rounds of the left and the right splits on one day per week. And then maybe they can do this one, which is for straddle splits, which essentially goes through very similar foam rolling of like working their inner thighs more particularly, more so than like the hamstring and the quad. But then it has exercises that are based around getting your straddle split better so that circles go sideways, standing at the beam. And then all of their active flexibility stuff is based on like actual straddles. So for the kids that are really stiff, the first video, the right and the left leg splits, maybe you do that 2 days per week. And then the straddle one, you do 2 days per week and you have them do them for just 10 minutes. Do a group warm up, do your normal stuff, then you save like 5 to 10 minutes before the first event. And you have like, okay, kids go over here and you guys do your hip stuff. If you're a little bit tighter, you go through your complex as a group. You guys over here that are more flexible, you guys go through some of the active flexibility stuff that I'll show you in a second. But again, like 2 separate groups, the ones that are stiff and the ones that are maybe more flexible can't quite get their angles. So, yeah, I'll send you all this stuff, but I would just kind of follow these and go through it. You can screen out the kids. It just gets much more complicated in their hip. And so I
Yeah.
would say maybe just follow the general advice first and see if you make progress. But the same kind of stuff is measure their splits on a line the first week. 3 weeks later, maybe you alternate between the shoulders and the hip stuff every other day, or you do one or the other. And then 3 weeks later, you come back and you see if you've made progress and all these kind of things. So that would be for the kids that are really, really stiff. And then for the kids that are just lacking some strength to get a little bit stronger, I think that definitely getting their hips quite a bit stronger with hip lifts are very important first. I'm not sure if you've seen these before, but oftentimes they lack the strength in their hip to get like the end range strengthening. So like oftentimes in gymnastics, like the hamstring and the glute aren't directly strengthened enough. So like 3 to 4 sets of these in your conditioning might be really good as like a general for all the kids to do. But getting the back of their hips stronger with these and then also doing side plank clamshells would also be something that'd be super helpful to go in your strength as well, because the muscles that are strengthened with the first exercise and with this are the muscles that lift your hips up into active flexibility for the back leg of a split. So if you're just doing active flexibility stuff, but they're not stronger, then like it's never going to work because they're just not physically strong enough to lift their legs up, right? But if you work in weighted hip lifts and side plank clamshells into your strengthening program, you're going to get the muscles themselves stronger, and then they transfer over to active flexibility much better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Yeah, so I would add in the hip strengthening exercises, like the hip lift and the clamshells to just like everybody's strength program. It's very good for everyone to do. But then for the kids in the beginning of practice or in the middle of practice, when you're giving them like 10 minutes to work on this specific area, they can probably do like the active hip flexibility stuff, which is probably specific to what they need. And a lot of the things that would work for that group too are the end of the complex in the first one, right? The stall bar kicks, needle kicks. But these are particularly helpful for back leg of leaps. So when they curl up in a ball like this, similar to the upper back screen, they can't cheat with their back arching and they can't do anything. So just having them lift their leg up and hold, we'll get like the last 10 degrees of a switch leap, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah. So just in summary, the kids that are stiff would get the first two complexes, right? Kind of focus on that. The kids that are very, very hyper flexible, but just like no matter how much you stretch, they can't straighten their knees, or no matter how much you try to like work on their splits, they don't show up on their actual skills. They would get everybody would get the strengthening in their program, the hip lifts, the side plank clamshells. But then the kids that are very, very hypermobile who just need more strength would probably get an extra dosage of like stall bar kicks, needle kicks, curled up hip lifts to the back this way, probably just like 10 reps of all those, if that makes sense. In the beginning of practice, when one group is going through their complex of stretching and stuff like that and flexibility, the other group is going through probably 2 rounds of this kind of stuff, which is just active flex, needle kicks, stall bar kicks, all things like that. And I think there also is one here as well. So you can work for straddles also if they curl up on the side and go this way. So maybe they would do 2 sets of 10 side kicks, 2 sets of 10 back kicks, stall bar kicks, or like hanging from a high bar kicks, and then go over on tumble track or tramp and do 10 jumps right, left, split. So they would do that every day, right? Or they could do it as like a beam warm up, as a complex.
Yeah.
So hopefully that makes sense though about like the two different groups. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that does.
Yeah. And all you really need to do is just kind of organize, screen those kids on the first day. Like, all right, I'm going to look at everyone's, you know, one person comes over, look at their shoulders real quick, and then let me see your splits on a line, and a straddle, and you mark whether that kid, because some kids are like flexible in their shoulders, but super stiff in their hips. So they need like the more strength circuit for their shoulders, but they need the more like flexibility circuit for their hips versus other kids are just going to be stiff everywhere. Some kids are super flexible everywhere. Some have a mix and a match. So you kind of like maybe just get note cards and put on the front which one they are, like, flexibility or strength. And then on the other side for their legs, put flexibility or strength. And then you can go through and write down the exercises that you want them to do, from the first piece of the conversation, which is, 10 upper back extensions, 10 rotations, and 10 of those back bends on the front of their card, flip their card over, and okay, for their leg, go through this circuit, leg drivers, all that kind of stuff, hip quad stretch, and just have them do that over and over. And if you screen them all out, that's by far and away the most important thing, because people just spin their wheels. They see like flashy new social media, Instagram drill, and they put it to all their kids. And
Yeah.
for a couple kids, it'll work. For a couple kids, it won't work. And for a couple kids, it's like completely wasting their time. So yeah, that's what I would do. I would screen them all, and then I'll send you, like I said, links to all these kind of things. And you can maybe either, if you guys have an iPad at the gym, you guys can review them online on YouTube, just if kids are confused. Or I draw stick figures in their binders sometimes, which is usually sometimes easy to remember. Or after the first week or first couple of days of them doing it all together, they kind of remember, what to do, and just stick to the same drills for 3 weeks. As boring as it is, just have them do the same thing every single day for 3 weeks, and then just measure in 3 weeks again if they're better or different or stuff like that. And if they still have some kids that are struggling, just switch the drills up a little bit, and then maybe have it like a little bit of a dosage. But I would try to go every day for 10 minutes before practice if it's really a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, and the other piece of it too is just making sure you have the space and the equipment to, like, make it kind of flow really well, you know what I mean? Because, like, sometimes,
Yeah.
like, one thing you need is, like, over there in the gym, and then somebody else is using a rec class on this side of the gym you need. So just get all the things you need in one spot wherever you warm up, and just do them all very quickly, because they'll memorize it pretty fast, but you don't want them, like, running all over the gym. And just time it too with your
Mm.
watch, right? Like, put it a minute per station so that they're not, like, chatting with friends about
Yeah.
TikToks and stuff like that. Have them actually put on like a minute for each station, and you can get through 2 rounds of 5 things in 10 minutes pretty easily.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything
Um,
else?
maybe helping in creating a cardio or endurance based program, because
Yep.
the girls are very inconsistent in hitting their routines, and especially like they tire very easily or fatigue very easily when we do more than one like bar routine or floor routine.
Yeah.
And yeah, think I just want some help in, yeah, implementing a good cardio program.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy. That's one of the most tricky areas
Mhm.
to handle in gymnastics because it's very stressful sometimes. And also, I think the science is not quite caught up with the reality of what happens in gymnastics in terms of like, I don't know, we're really good at doing, and I'm guilty of this too. Just like in the summers, run for 20 minutes, right? And then
Yeah.
do some plyos, right? And then I would have them just run till they're
Mhm.
tired and sweaty. And then when season comes, I was like, all right, let's do skill combinations. Now let's do half routines. Now let's do full routines. Now let's do back-to-back routines. And it's like not the most the most
Yeah.
specific way to do it. Yeah, let me get a template up here that we can use. So what do you guys in terms of I guess the most important thing is what do you guys have in terms of like timelines or plans for like how long are you in like your off? Are you in your off season now? Are you guys competing on the?
No. So we are like pre-season. We have comps or meets, or we call them comps over here. I
Yeah,
think
it's
you
okay.
guys call it meets. Yeah.
Yeah.
They start next month. Yeah.
Okay. And then how many months are you guys going to be in? Um,
Until November, I believe.
okay, so like 6 months. I don't even know if that is just quick math. Like August, September, October. Yeah, like 5 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So that being said, I think there's the immediate thing to do would be to just try to build some cardio circuits that are very specific to routines and routines to endurance and stuff like that. I think the obviously the best thing would be to do is to kind of like have a nice year long plan for starting from like just like you want to get someone really strong in the beginning of their summer season or off season, whatever that is for you, and then eventually you make that become power. Then eventually you make that become like the actual routines you're going to do. Energy systems and cardio kind of work the same way, where you want to have in the off season, you would like to have like more general cardio training. So like circuits and like 10 to 15 to 20-minute long, kind of like just getting really, really like your heart and your lungs to work harder. That would probably be the best way to go about it from the start. But obviously you guys don't have that luxury right now. So I think the best thing to do would be to probably make a plan for you right now, or just give you some good examples of workouts that you could do to kind of make the most of the situation and just get them fitter in general. And then maybe try to help you plan for November or December when you guys transfer back to like your off season training, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that being said, I think right now, you said you have a month until your first meet comes or your first comp.
Yeah.
Okay. And are they doing routines right now? And it's just like they're just tired.
Yeah, they're doing routines. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So I think if I were you, I would probably try to. How many meets do they have over the course of 5 months?
I'd say maybe 10.
Okay.
I'm
Cool.
not sure. Yeah.
Okay. It's okay. So the reason I say this is because I think it'd be in your best interest to maybe take the next 6 weeks to really focus on doing cardio workouts that will increase them over time, but with the understanding that the first two meets are not going to be stellar because there might be like catching up from the fatigue, right? So like I think a lot of people want to have an amazing first meet, they want to do awesome. Like I totally get that, but it might be in your better interest to tell them in advance and tell the parents in advance, like, hey, we're going to be doing some like harder cardio and some harder strength with the goal of towards the middle of the season really kind of hitting our stride and being perfect versus like being perfect and amazing at the first meet and then kind of like "Meow," like trickling
Yeah.
down. Because if you add in a couple of these workouts that are really hard, they're going to be a little bit more tired than usual. So you'd want to put them at the end of the week when they're almost done. But also it's going to kind of like accumulate week to week to week. And you'll probably take a rest week right before your first competition, but they'll still be a little bit tired and it won't be the most, amazing probably they've ever felt in their life. Because I'll give you like just three kind of examples of workouts that you could use that I think are really helpful. And
Mhm.
then we can talk about like planning for the next year. So, how many days per week do you guys practice?
4.
Perfect. Nice. So, I would say maybe if you could do two of these per week, it'd be ideal. Like pick
Mhm.
one and one. Certainly not the end of the world. And then what days of the week do you guys practice?
So we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Perfect. So I would probably do these cardio workouts on Wednesday and
Mhm.
then Saturday because they're pretty sassy. They're a little spicy. And, they can get hard fast. And I've done them with the girls, and they can be very tiring. So you'd probably want to do them. It's good that you guys have a day off in between to recover a little bit. But let
Yeah.
me share my screen. This is a strength template that we use, but I converted it into a cardio one. So yeah, there's three things that are good. So we have like the general cardio stuff, and then we have bar cardio, or what we call cardio, which is the most
Mhm.
fun, and then floor specific. Those are kind of like the three big ones, right? Like they're slightly different because the general cardio circuits are just to get everybody a little bit more, you know, stronger, fitter, like whatever else you would say, versus the bar ones are very specific to the arms being the things that get really tired really fast, versus
Yeah.
the floor ones are obviously the ones where your legs get really tired very fast. So with the general ones, I think the biggest thing we're trying to do is you can do just longer intervals. So like maybe like 60 to 90 seconds worth of work that you go really fast, you get really, really tired, really, really out of breath, and then you rest while your two partners go, right? So say you have 8 girls in your squad, you might have a group of three, and a group of two, and they just rest an extra one to make it a three group, where the first person does a bunch of stuff for like 60 seconds, goes as hard as they can, and tries to really get their energy up with general movements that are not going to be super like gymnastic specific, but they're just really, really hard. So sled pushes and jump
Mhm.
cast handstands on the floor and med ball slams or battling ropes or whatever else you guys can do. But the key is that you want to make sure the entire body is working very, very hard. So an error I used to make and an error a lot of other people make is they only do like leg stuff. So like squat jumps and then plate
Mhm.
taps and then something for core and they sprint, right? That's just like leg, core.
Yeah.
And so what that does is it teaches it so like your legs work really hard and your legs get tired, but you never train your body for your arms and your core to be tired as well. So you want to pick exercises that kind of like one for the arms, one for the core, one for the legs, and kind of mix it all together so that everything gets really, really tired in that 60 to 90 seconds and then everything gets recovered and you kind of work back and forth. That's how you train the whole body to work in that kind of like burst, relax kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's kind of two different workouts that I like doing here. And I will spare you all the geeky stuff, so don't worry about that. So one, two, three, right? So the first one that's very good is doing some sort of like leg, arm, and core together. So doing sled push or a battling rope. Sorry. So sled push. So for 30 seconds, they're going to like sprint around a floor or down and back as many times as they can possibly do in 30 seconds, like going super, super hard. Not a lot of weight on the sled. You can add a little bit of weight on the sled maybe, but you don't want to make it super heavy because they can't go fast. We're trying to go as fast as we can. So they would do some sort of sled push, and then they do some sort of core thing. So like hollow flutters are really good, or V-ups with a plus. Are you familiar with those?
Sorry, say again.
V-ups with a plus. You know what a V-up is? Like laying on your back, just touching your
Oh,
toes.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So a V-up with a plus is instead of touching your toes, you put your hands on the floor next to you and you lift your butt up off the floor at the top of the rep.
Oh, okay.
So it makes it very, very hard because it works your arms, obviously, but then you have to like hold your compression at the top of the movement as if you were doing a kip or a kip cast. So I like those quite a bit because they enforce like a really deep compression shape instead of just like barely touching your toes and flopping to the ground.
Yeah.
So a V up with a plus, I would say, is for more if your kids are more advanced and they can do this. A hollow flutter is for kids that maybe are a little bit lower level and are struggling with this kind of stuff. So maybe you start the first 2 weeks with the hollow flutters because it's really easy to do that movement well, versus like a V up with a plus is more advanced and it's much more power output. So you do that. So for 30 seconds, they would sled pushes around the floor as hard as they can. For 30 seconds, immediately as soon as they're done with the sled push, they would drop on the ground and do V ups or do hollow flutters. And then the last thing they would do is a jump cast handstand on the floor. They just like a drill, right? You're kneeling on the ground, you jump up and you straddle legs together and you slow yourself back down. So what you're
Yeah.
doing there is you're creating a situation where you're not allowed to, but you're really forcing them to work for the full 90 seconds, right? Or 60 seconds if you go 20, 20, 20 to start with. It's really hard. So they run around with a sled, they drop to the floor as soon as the timer changes and do their hollows. They flip over on their stomach and do jump cast handstands as soon as they're done. So there's no like resting, waiting, kind of seeing who's going to go and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then as soon as you say switch, the second person runs over or should be standing by the sled. They start going with the sled while the first group kind of moves off to the side. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are typically called long intervals, right? And again, I'll spare you the nerdy details, but it kind of depends on how much time you have. But I think usually somewhere in like the 3 to 5 range is a good starting place for these kind of things. I would say 3 to 5 is going to be like how many rounds you want to do because you got to think about if you, oh, not March, that's not what I want. If you have a group of kids that all need to go through this circuit. So if you, it takes 2 minutes, or sorry, 90 seconds to get through one round. So that's 90 seconds, 3 minutes. It's 4.5 minutes for all of the kids in the group to go one time through, right?
Mm.
So if you do 2 rounds, that's 9 minutes, right? And so you're looking with setup and with everything, it's probably just to get through 3 rounds is probably 15 minutes to
Yeah.
do it really well. So most people typically, if they do a strength and a cardio day together, have like, a half hour to 45 minutes to work through. So I would start with 4 rounds just to kind of get them going. So 4 rounds will probably take you about 20 minutes to do it. But again, the key is that when you're going for that 90 seconds, you are going like really, really, really hard, right? But these are all
Mhm.
movements that are super safe to do, right? You're not going to,
Yeah.
it's very hard to hurt yourself doing sled pushes. You just get tired. So that would be the first kind of idea of a workout that you might want to try is 30, 30, 30, or if they're new to it and it's really hard, go 20 second, 20 second, 20 second. And then their rest is going to be 2 partners worth. Is this type of energy system, Shay, is like you actually need a much longer rest time compared to
Mhm.
how long you work. So like the long cardio circuit, you can go for a station to station to station. But if they're really going as hard as they possibly can, in an ideal world, if you had more time, you would need like 5 or 6 times the amount of work. So it'd be like 6 minutes of rest compared to the 30 seconds, because that's how much you need to rest to go as hard as you possibly can. Because we all know if you just start putting things too close together, it's just like looks like they're barely trudging the sled around the floor, right? And I've done these workouts with them and I know how terribly hard it is. So you want to try to rest a long time in between, which is why you have more partners in the group. If you guys go for like the 60-second one, so maybe you go 20 second, 20 second, 20 second, maybe just do 2 groups of 4. And then it's like they get 3 minutes of rest for every 1 minute of work, right? And that
Yeah.
would be a little bit more intention based behind like the power explosiveness being what you need to develop for like floor and stuff like that. So that would kind of be the first idea of something I would do. Those are called long intervals. The other
Mhm.
thing I would do are shorter intervals, right? So with these intervals, you're very much focused on like the 5 to 10 seconds of like explosive work, like sprinting as fast as you can or going as hard as you can, but you rest only 1 partner worth. So like you sprint as hard as you can for a couple seconds, but now because it's such a short window of work, you're going to go a little bit less rest and you're going to go immediately when your partner's done, right? And because they're shorter turnaround times, you would do more sets in series. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah.
So there's different science behind why you would work one versus the other, but both are considered high intensity interval training, and they're effective to help like in a specific sport like gymnastics. So in this situation, what I would like to do is I'd like to do some sort of like the lower body movement paired with
Mhm.
some sort of like sprinting or running or some sort of cardiovascular thing in general, and you would have them do 2 exercises, go back to back like 7 rounds, take a 2 minute rest to let everybody recover, do a different couple of set of exercises back and forth, another 2 minute rest, the third set of exercises back and forth, right? So it's like you're just working very fast back and forth, and it's about the same time, about 20 minutes, but it's a different situation than like 90 seconds of work, 4 minutes of rest. This is constantly going back and forth for 7 rounds, and then you rest everybody 2 minutes, back and forth, rest 2 minutes, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
So for these, you would have 1A and 1B just denotes like the 2 exercises together. And then 2A, 2B, 3. Oh, that worked out perfectly. Look at that. So for these, right, you would have your 2 minute rest. I like doing, you know what plate hops are?
No.
Yeah, I'll show
Don't.
you. Plate hops and quick taps, my words escape me today, are ways to work like the calf muscles in a
Mhm.
very, very fast, explosive way, but they're very good also for energy systems training. My buddy Chris Hinshaw, who's a very, very good, one of the world's best cardio coaches, aerobic capacity coaches, uses these quite a bit to work on the faster twitch stuff of like calf muscles. I like
Mhm.
putting in some of these shorter intervals. So these are, I think these are plate hops. So you just have them on like little square and they'd be going as fast as they possibly can, back and forth, depending my internet works like this.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then quick taps are the opposite. They're just front to back. So these are quick taps.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we would probably want to pair like some sort of like quick tap or plate hop, but which works the calves very, very fast
Mhm.
with maybe some sort of upper body movement or like a sled push or like med ball slams. Like we want one really big explosive movement paired with like some sort of sprinting movement or something like that. So because we're trying to get that idea of like very fast, explosive, like quick, 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 quick. The three things that I like doing for some of the cardio based stuff: sprinting, sleds, and
Mhm.
bear crawls. Right, bear crawls are brutal in terms of like working your whole body, but they involve your arms. Right, so when you crawl, your arms are also getting fatigued, just like
Mhm.
your legs are, and your core is also being worked. Versus when you sprint, if you just do sprinting intervals, this is why I'm not a huge fan of like long distance running only for gymnasts, because you're only working the legs. You're teaching the legs how to be better at cardio, but you're ignoring the arms. And we know the arms are super, super important for like cardio for gymnasts. So I like bear crawls because they're a very easy way to make it very, very hard for your upper body and your lower body, similar to sled pushes, because your arms are straight ahead and you have to work your shoulders while your legs work as well. So I like doing sprints, but I also like doing bear crawls and sled pushes. So that's usually going to be the other thing that we do. So 2 laps of sled push, 2 laps of bear crawls will be the other thing that we do, then 2 laps of sprints. So when I say laps, I just mean like you're on the floor, just sprint down, sprint back as fast as you can.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be the thing that they do on the second piece. So here, like the 1A, the 2A, the 3A, it's kind of dependent on what you think the kids need more, right? So like I wouldn't want to pair something for the legs that's really heavy on the same thing they're doing as a sled push, right? Because that would be kind of cruel to have them do a whole bunch of squat jumps and then do a sled push, right? They're not going to push the sled super, super fast because of how tired their arms are. So for here, I think doing plyo push-ups are a really good one. Sometimes you have to put their hands on an elevated surface. So maybe on the sled that they're going to push, have them angle themselves, touch their chest, and just push off as hard as they possibly can and get a big plyo lift off the sled, because that works that fast twitch kind of thing we're looking for. But it's not going to stress like their legs, right? So they can do plyo push-up as hard as they can 5 times, and then they can sprint with the sled down, sled back, right? That would be maybe to do that with high quality, depending on the length of your
Mhm.
floor, would probably take 10 to 15 seconds, right? So they would do that very fast down and back, and then their partner would go while they rest. So maybe they would go back and forth for 6 rounds of just these two things. So push-ups, sled push, 6 times back and forth. Everybody would take a 2-minute rest after the whole group is done.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yep. So they would do this first, right? So they would go back and forth 6 times. And again, you think about like how much time you have. It's going to take the whole group to go is probably about 30 seconds for both partners to go. So 6 times 30 is not a lot. It's like 5 minutes, maybe all in all, when you like explain things, set it up, get it all done. So 5 minutes or so, then a 2-minute rest. And then the next thing we could do here is, now that we're doing something with our arms, we probably could do something more explosive with our legs, right? So I like split squat jumps or like jumping lunges, but max effort, right? So like hands
Mhm.
down below, throw as hard as you can, jump as high as you can, switch your legs and immediately jump and go the other side. So we're really looking for like maximal effort. So like I would like to see maybe um again, 6 split squat jumps is good because it's 3 on each leg. So 6 split squat jumps as high as you can, as explosive as you can, and then bear crawl down, bear crawl back as fast as you can, obviously with safety being on your hands and knees for bear crawl. So they would do 6 of those second, right? They would all rest 2 minutes again. The last thing, again, because you have more of your legs working, you want the sprints to be really explosive. You want to do something that's a little bit more based on their arms. So you could do, jump cast handstands again. You obviously wouldn't do the same workout probably in the same week, but jump cast handstands, 3 jump cast handstands with perfect quality to get their lines, or maybe it's 5 med ball slams. If you guys have med balls, or 5 rope slams,
Yeah.
something that's more like their arms working really, really hard, right? Or jumping up overhead, because that's going to be more their upper body. And then you would have the 2 sprints here as well, and you would do 6 of those. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be, again, that's called like, those are called short intervals. Those are more like you're not working for like 60 to 90 seconds at a time, and you don't have that huge long rest. But because you are doing a little bit less work in that shorter period of time, you can have more volume. So you can build up the volume over time. So yeah, those would be the general workouts. And again, in terms of like planning for these, you might want to do, um, the shorter workout on a Wednesday, and then the next week do the longer workout. The next week do the shorter workout. The next week do the longer workout on like the Wednesday day for the general day.
Yeah.
And those are both, I've used those, probably both variations of those types of workouts for like 3 to 5 years. And they've always been super, super helpful to develop someone's like general cardio system. They're very hard, but they're very safe, which is kind of the key. So that would be one. Any questions on that one?
Nope, that's
And
fine.
I'll send this to you, obviously. Um, but so that would be more for general. The specific
Yep.
stuff for bars, I think the important thing to remember with bars is that it has to be you want it to be specific to the event, right? Specific to the types of things that they're doing. But we also want to try to mix in some of the lower body as well, because um, it's very easy for someone to think bars is only arms and do all their stuff, but you're squeezing your legs together for form and you have to land a dismount at the end. And if you
Yeah.
don't train kind of both pieces of those, it might be very, very hard to do a full bar routine well. Vice versa, on floor, you do want to primarily train the legs, but you also want to make sure the arms are, getting, work as well, because they need to be powerful in the back handspring, the last tumbling pass, all that kind of stuff. So with bars, obviously the prerequisite is you need time on bars to do their cardio stuff. But when we do the cardio stuff, we usually do a couple basic skills in between, and I would spot them. So one coach would be on one low bar, I'd be on the other low bar, and they would do some stuff on the low bar, jump to the high bar, do some tap swings for older athletes. They can do giants wherever level you're at, some kip cast pushways on the high bar, jump down, run over to a floor bar, do a bunch of push-ups or a cast handstand, and then end with a bunch of sprints or broad jumps on like a floor somewhere, because it mimics the leg getting tired as well. And over the course of a bunch of rounds, that fatigue builds up quite a bit of the upper body and the lower body together. And so an example might be, so same kind of deal. They're going to probably be in two lines, like a Congo line fashion, where you have like 4 kids on one bar, 4 kids on one bar, so that they have like a nice 1 to 3 rest. One person works, then like they get the rest for 3 people while they come back, chalk up, like all that kind of stuff. So this really heavily depends on the level of athletes you work with. And I don't know particularly who it is. Beginner athletes who have never done this before, it's literally just kip cast pushaways. It's just 5 spotted or 3 spotted kip cast pushaways, right? They jump to high
Mhm.
bar, tap swing, tap swing, tap swing, half turn dismount, run over to the floor and do their dismounts. Higher level girls that are able to do more, it's 3 to 5 kip cast handstands, jump to high bar, giant, 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 hop down. They go over and do their stuff, right? Super advanced girls, kip cast handstand, free up handstand, pirouette, jump to high bar, all sorts of crazy stuff, right? Like it's really dependent on the skill level that your kids are working with. But I'll just guess here and say that I would probably do kip cast handstand
Yep.
on the low bar. So maybe 3 to 5. Sorry, for reps over here too, I didn't fill them in because it was max effort, right? Like as many as you can fit in the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But over here, so maybe we do 3 to 5. If they're brand new to this, 3 kip cast handstands in a row, right? Jump to high bar, 3 kip cast pushaways, and then cast handstand to dismount. Right. So maybe they would do 3 to 5 on the high bar, and then
Mhm.
1 kip cast handstand to a dismount, and then they would run over to a floor somewhere, and maybe
Mhm.
they would do 5 floor bar push-ups, or 5 floor bar push-ups. If you don't have the space for that, you can do med balls too. Med ball slams are great to work their arms, and they would end by going to a rod strip or a floor and doing 3 max effort sprints. That would kind of mimic like the landing that was coming, or you could do 1 lap of quad jumps, because that mimics like landing and absorbing the forces like in a squat
Yeah.
pattern. So something like that, right? This would be 5, and then this would be just 1 lap, 1 to 3 laps. Yeah. So low bar, kip cast handstand 3, jump up to high bar, kip cast push away 3, pull over or kip up or connect it depending on the level. Best
Mhm.
cast you can do, swing to a layout, or if they're lower level and you're worried about them getting tired at the end and they're like hurting something, just half turn dismount, run over to the
Yep.
floor, push-ups or med balls, run to the floor, sprint, 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 and then you're exhausted, you're dead, you're chalking up, you're waiting while your other kids are going.
Yeah.
And again, I would do 3 to 5 sets of these
Okay.
for all of it, because of time, honestly, like the time to get everybody through all of it, and also you're spotting 50 cast
Yeah.
handstands. So that would be an example of something that you could do, right, on bars specifically. I think there are a lot of other options there. You could do other variations of that where they're just like in bars, you could do like 2 kip cast handstand to in bar, kip cast handstand to in bar, jump to high bar, tap swing, tap swing, tap swing, tap swing, fly away. Like I've had some girls that they're high level, but they're new to this, and it's so hard that
Yeah.
just keep their skills really basic and super clean. It's always about quality, right? I don't want to see crummy cast handstands. I'd rather see a perfect kip cast to 45 with a beautiful kip cast or free it back to 45 than, because all those kids that I are having that can do free up handstands pretty well with a spot where they can do them and they've competed them. But like, I'd rather see super clean, high quality gymnastics when you're tired versus
Mhm.
crummy, throw myself around, be sloppy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So another example might be 2 kip cast, 3 hips to 45,
Mhm.
5 tap swings, 5 med ball slams, 3 sprints, right? That could easily be another great introductory version just to be like really focusing on the highest quality you could possibly do. We've done this with our very low level athletes too. So kip, drop kip, drop kip, crawl up to high bar, tap swing, tap swing, tap swing, half turn, dismount, sprint, sprint, like for the younger athletes that are brand new. So there's really a lot of options here, but it's really more importantly that the framework is you're trying to work general cardio for like what's called the anaerobic system, but in a
Mhm.
way that's specific to the event themselves, right? So it's not just doing half routines, then back to back bar routines that comes down the road. This builds the general energy system for what will be needed on bars to do a lot of stuff in like 60 seconds or 50 seconds for routines. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. And then the last thing over here would be the same kind of idea, but for floor. So the key here is that when you get in your floor space, do you have a space where you could tumble to like a kind of a safe surface? So a resi pit, a pit, some sort of softer landing. It's okay if not. We can
No,
make it.
you
Yeah,
don't
it's okay.
know.
Is there a way for you to put like a lot of softer mats on the floor, like on a
Mhm.
diagonal, and then just spot them?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So you can do this. The key is that when you're doing this type of floor cardio, you're going to be doing basic tumbling, but they're going to get really tired throughout the workout. So that like by the end, they're doing tumbling passes when they're tired, and you want to mimic that. But it's a safety thing first. So like we're luxurious where we did have a pit where we could do it into. So it was like into the pit, into the stack. But other times we would just have the coaches spot them. So just spot them
Mhm.
on their tuck, spot them on their layout, and like they might start by doing a layout because they're fresh, but as the rounds go farther and farther, it might turn into a round off back handspring rebound or 2 back handsprings because they're so tired that you want to keep them as safe as possible. That's just the important caveat. So with this, same kind of deal is we're going to be doing things that involve tumbling first and then a bunch of exercises after that to make them more tired, just like we did with bars. So we started
Mhm.
with cast handstands and dismounts, but then we went on to like something general for their upper body and their legs. Same thing on floor. We're going to do some tumbling passes and then go do some exercises to build up more tiredness before they get back in line and keep repeating over and over again. And so I generally have, in terms of like how many sets to do, you can prescribe a certain number of rounds through, like 5 rounds, or you can just put a clock on for 20 minutes. Have
Okay.
all your squad go through it. So maybe you have 2 diagonals, right? One tumbling into one corner is 4 girls are doing that circuit. The other one is 4 girls doing the other circuit, and you have a coach on each side spotting. If it's just you, maybe it's all 1 and 1 8 line. It just takes a little bit longer. But I would have them do to start, I would have them do just 1 tumbling pass. 1 tumbling pass into the corner. I always tell them the highest level skill you can do with really good quality. So if they've just
Mhm.
learned a full and they're really not confident and they don't really know yet, but they're getting it, that's not the time for this, right? Just do a layout with really high quality. And then maybe in the end of the round, it goes down to a tuck or it goes down to a back handspring because we want to keep them safe. But they would do 1 tumbling pass. And then around the edges of the floor, they're going to be doing some exercises that are even more challenging, right? So we would do 1 lap of a handstand walk. Oh, sorry, forgive me. We would do 1 lap of lunges, and then
Mhm.
on another side of the floor, they would do handstand walk, and then on 1 lap, like they go down the diagonal, and then they go lunges down, handstand walk this side, and then broad jumps back to the corner that they wait in line for.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep. While the other group, if you can split them in half and have another coach, would go this diagonal around the opposite way so that they're not hitting each other.
Yeah.
Yep. So what this does is that it causes them to do a tumbling pass, and then build up more fatigue around the outside with the muscles that are going to be needed for their dance and for their tumbling and for their jumps and for their leaps. And as things go on, you can change the leaps and stuff like that, or the sides to be more specific to the leaps. So you might do this for 2 weeks, and then in the next 2 weeks, it might look like 2 tumbling passes.
Mhm.
They tumble down, run back, tumble down again. They do leaps and jumps from their routine down one side. So they do their leap pass and jump, 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 whatever. Then they do the handstand walk. Then they do the broad jump to get back in line. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
now it's not only is it harder because they're doing doubled the tumbling passes. It's harder and more specific because they're doing their jumps and their leaps, but they're still building up the fatigue when they're resting.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what we would have them do is maybe for 2 weeks, they do this. And for 2 weeks, they do this. And they just work on, if you get more confident, maybe that first 2 or 3 passes is one of your upgraded skills. Right. And we alternate between front and back. So in our gym, like we had, for example, it would be um, one of our higher level girls would go down and do a front full. Then she would run back and do a back 1.5. Then she would do her jumps and leaps down the side, handstand walk, broad jumps, weight back in line for probably she gets like 2 to 3 minutes of rest while her teammates go before she goes
Yeah.
back. Lower level athletes that we had, because they were all mixed in together, would be run, front handspring, front tuck, run back, round up back handspring, back tuck, jumps and leaps, handstand, broad jumps. Does that thing make sense? Is that overwhelming? Is it
No, it's good.
good? Awesome. So the reason these are good is because this is the intersection of the geekiest of the geeky stuff that the science says and what actually is useful for gymnastics, but practical to do in a practice, right? Like this is all very doable in 20 to 30 minutes. You
Yeah.
explain it once, you get it going. It's kind of a pain in the butt. But after that, it kind of comes together and they understand how to do it. But these like are the frameworks for this part of the season that I do, right? So like and for me, this would be yeah, September, October, November, the opposite of what you have right now in your season structure.
Mhm.
So we would be doing this in the preseason before we're getting ready to ramp up to meet season. And ideally, it would be like a month or two ago because you'd want more time to do actual routines. But for what you're given now, I would say just work on doing the best you can a couple days per week. So on Mondays or sorry Wednesdays, I would probably do this column, this first column. That's the general stuff, and then maybe on the later days, the Saturdays, depending on how they feel, I might want to end with one of these harder ones. If you notice though that like the quality of gymnastics is very poor, you can switch these. You can have maybe the Wednesday do like a bar one or a floor one. And then this one is it's hard. It's just super, super hard, but it's safe to do. So maybe you do that on the end of the week on a Saturday to kind of like really finish the week off really well and give them a day off to recover.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you have any questions on that kind of stuff? Because the next thing I can do is kind of share like what ideally you would do next year a little bit differently with your off-season training to get ready. I think a little bit more,
Okay.
but no questions here.
No, that's fine.
Perfect. Okay. So with that in mind, I think when you plan your next off season, which again for us is the summer, I would recommend that you do 2 days of longer,
Mhm.
longer kind of circuits and stuff like that. Because again, trying to just get their entire body to be fitter, their heart to be, a little bit more efficient, their lungs to work a little bit better. Usually that's a lot of people are trying to do, what is great, which is like a longer run or some sort of just like plyos around the floor and stuff like that. But just running again only works your legs. So it's specific to running and it's not going to be helpful for the whole body. Just doing plyos is really not the best option because for plyos, we want really high intensity. We don't want to just do endless panel mat lines, jumping and jumping and jumping because you just fatigue the kids out. The quality comes down. So you'd rather take that like plyo work and put it at the beginning of practice for like explosive, kind of like when they're fresh. But the way that I try to go about it in the summer is doing circuits. So like 10 stations in a nice little circuit fashion. Again, mixing the upper body, the lower body, and the core to just keep them moving for 20 minutes and get their entire body to work really, really hard. And you can start with intervals that are shorter, like 40 seconds of work, 20 seconds of rest, stations that are not as challenging and maybe less intensity. But then as the summer or the off season goes on, you can make it 45 seconds and 15 seconds of rest, and then get down to 50 seconds of work and 10 seconds of rest. So they're doing more work and they have less rest. So for these, I would do 10 stations.
Mhm.
We're gonna have two different circuits. We'll make them kind of back to back. So two different stations, and then I'm gonna rotate these of lower body, upper body, and core, right? To go through that, and it's really a personal preference whether you'd like to do all the gymnastics stuff on one day in a circuit and then or mix it up, or have like, in the off season like 2 lifting days, which I would recommend, and then 2 days that are more like general gymnastics stuff. That's kind of a bigger topic for later, but generally speaking, so upper body, lower body, core. So it'd be like upper, lower, core, and you kind of go through that upper lower core. And you could also throw in some like very gymnastics specific stuff as well. But when I make these kind of programs, so say if we go the opposite, like lower body first, just to kind of explain it better, if we do a squatting movement on the first day, we might do what's called a hinging movement on the second day. So this might be like goblet squat or a squat jump, right? Versus this day, we might do a hip lift, right? The weighted hip lift that I showed you earlier,
Oh yeah.
right? So we might do a squat here. Let's just make it up as we go. Let's say jumping lunge, jumping squat. And then here we'll do a hip lift. And then for the upper body, we want to try to balance pushing and pulling this way, right? Front to back with pushing and pulling overhead. So we might do a push up on this day. We might do a feet elevated row on the other day, right? So we have like different motions of the legs we want to try to hit. We have different upper body stuff we want to hit, and then different core stuff like front core, back core, all that kind of stuff. So I'm literally just flying by the seat of my pants right now. So maybe we do a front core exercise on the first day, then we would do the opposite on the opposite day. So we have squat, hinge. We would want to do some sort of like lunging position, walking lunges maybe. And then on the other leg, maybe like a single leg, because that's like the main pattern to the lower body. So squat, hinge, split pelvis, single leg, and then extra stuff. So on this one, we might do step up, skip, block. And then because up here, we did pushing this way on one day and then pulling the other way. On this day, we might want to do pushing overhead and then pulling down the opposite way, right? So we might do a handstand push-up. On the other day, it might be a rope climb. That balance is that we have all four of those kind of movements across the week.
Yeah.
And then we had the front of the core here and the back of the core. So on the side, we might do a side plank with a kick. That active flexibility stuff. And then for the turning core, the obliques, we might do a plank drag through. Right. So we have a lot of good. We have squat, hinge, split pelvis, single leg, and then we have pushing and pulling in the upper body, front to back, pushing and pulling overhead. And then we have all of our core stuff is kind of taking, that's like the meat and the potatoes, like a general program. So we put that in. And then same kind of stuff here. We have more options for some leg stuff. So I always try to get one plyo movement in, even though we're doing a little bit more like longer duration. It's only going to be like 40 seconds. So I'll probably do some sort of like jumping or calf work. So in and out panel mat jumps are good. Are you familiar with those? So 2 panel mats side by side. And they jump up and up. Yep, cool. And then on this one, we might do some sort of single leg plyo. So single leg, call them deer jumps, split squat rebounders. So their back foot is up on a mat and they're like pushing off the front leg, trying to knee themselves in the chest.
Yeah.
Have you seen those before?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that would be another really good thing for the legs to do, to put in one of those. I always like putting some sort of handstand drill into as well. So we can do just a wall facing handstand, or, you know, I often spot a lot of bar cast handstands. I think those are really important to add in all the time. So bar cast handstand, but any other cast handstand drill works there as well. And then something else for the core. I really think compression strength should always be in there for bars, stuff like that. So we could do floor pike. So sitting on the floor, hands go out by your knees, lift up in a pike as if you're doing like a kip drill. And then V ups with a plus on this side. So that's kind of there. And then usually the last 10th one, I just put in for anything that the actual, the whole team really needs. Like say they have like calf releve stuff, or maybe they need some accessory work on their upper back, you know, and then kind of works there. High tiptoe walks, high releve walks with the dumbbells in their hands to work on like calf and toe point. It's very good. And then over here, trying to think of something else that's really common for something to work on. So yes, maybe it's like an active flexibility drill. So like tumble track, tramp jumps. Said how like active flex is important. So like they would go over to tumble track and just jump and do the active flex stuff, right? You on the rod strip or the floor, that's more of a cardio power thing. If you do it on the tumble track, it's more like an active flexibility thing because it's a little bit easier. So this would be the general outline that I would do for the summer, right? I would have every 6 weeks of working on 5 weeks where they work really, really hard and make it harder. And then you take a 1 week to deload. And then the next set of 6 weeks, you would make another version of this, but with different exercises. And so sets are going to be probably 2 times around the entire circuit. So if you have 20 minutes, right? 5 minutes to explain it, get your water, fix your hair, get the mats, all that kind of stuff. And then you actually can get through 2 rounds of 10, which would be 20 minutes of work. Yep. So 2 sets there. The reps would be just as many as you could do, right? So it'd be 40 seconds of work and moderate intensity. So they would have 40 seconds of rest of work and then 20 seconds of rest. So that's what 40-20 means. they would do that for all of these. Honestly, I do these with the athletes in the summer, so I like enjoy understanding how challenging it is, but sometimes it needs to be modified a little bit. But there's a lot of different ways to progress this week to week, Shay. So you could change the time, right? We could go, if we go 45, 15 for a week or two, and then maybe after 2 more weeks, we do 50 seconds and 10 seconds to make like that intensity harder. So they have to do more repetitions per station, which stacks up very quickly. You could also make it harder by doing the exercise itself could change, right? So maybe you would do jumping squats with no weight, and then the second to third week you add just 5 pounds in their hands or 5 pounds by dumbbells by their sides to make it just a little bit harder each time. And that's more metabolic strain. Um, Maybe you do walking lunges with some weights. Maybe your handstand push-ups, instead of doing them in a tuck, you do them in a pike to make it more challenging. One leg up to make it more challenging each rep. There's a lot of different ways you can make this. You could increase the height of the panel mats. You can make the rope climbs legs, then no legs, like a lot of options. So you can change the time. You can change the exercise. You could change down to just 7 exercises and do 3 rounds through to make it 21 minutes instead of 20. It's really personal preference about what you think would work better for them. I would do this for 3 months. I would do 6 weeks where you have 5 weeks of working hard, 1 week off, another 5 weeks of a different circuit that's a little bit more gymnastics specific and maybe more power based, and then 1 week off. And then in the preseason is when I would go into these kind of things.
Okay.
So it'd be 3 months of this, 2.5, 3 months of this, and then 2.5, 3 months of this. And that would be your off season cardio training, your preseason cardio training, and then you would just go into routines, right? You would have half sets, full sets, meet, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because in the same way that the way that it works to get more explosive power is you get them stronger, then you train power, then you do gymnastic specific stuff to make it like show up in the routines. Cardio is the same way. You do general cardio training first to get their entire body fitter and healthier and stronger. Then you transfer that over to kind of gymnastic specific anaerobic explosive stuff, which is like these workouts and these workouts, but they're not quite routines. They're kind of this middle ground. So I would do this for 6 weeks, and then I would transfer over to the actual gymnastic specific. Your cardio is just 3 bar routines, right? Or just
Yeah.
working like watered down basics first, and then working your way into more stuff like that.
Okay.
So I think that makes sense. Do you have any questions about all this kind of stuff? Is any of that confusing? Or please ask. Like, don't feel like you need to not ask questions. I want you to ask as much as you possibly want.
No, I don't have any questions.
That's good. I mean, I didn't be too much of a nerd. So yeah, I think the best way to go about this is, for now, I would just try to do the best you can with your strength program twice a week, your cardio program twice a week, adding in flexibility before the practices. Like, start with the screening, figure out whose shoulders need stuff, write that on their note card, screen their legs, who needs that on their note card, write that,
Yep.
do 10 minutes before that. And then I would just try to play around with some of these cardio workouts and just see which ones are easier to start, nice and easy, and then just see how they respond. But again, make sure you educate them and the parents and the other coaches that if we do some of these harder new cardio things, we normally wouldn't want to add these in the beginning of a season to be fresh, but because you guys have a month or so to go, you could probably just know that, like, okay, the first 2 meets might be a tad rough because you're getting
Yeah.
something new in, but it'll pay off a lot in the middle of the season and the end of the season when hopefully you're getting through your routines a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yep. And I would recommend doing it with them.
Yeah.
You can definitely do it. You can show them that you can work hard. It's great. It's good for your coaching arms too, right? You can like not hurt your shoulders when you spot now. And so what we'll do is, this is definitely not like a see you goodbye forever. Like, I think you have my contact information now. So if you get a week or two into it and you're like, I totally forget, or I have no idea, just shoot me an email, just DM me or something like that, and we can hop back on another call, or we can figure it out for you.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for being a wonderful coach and a positive example on social media of how to be nice to
you.
kids. It sounds like you guys have a great team, and the kids sound like they love you as well.
Oh, thanks.
All right. Well, I'll let you go. I know it's late for you, and I have to run to work. So I hope you have a wonderful day,
Okay.
Shay, and thank you.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day.